The conversation with an amazing woman. Her name is Eme Essien Lore. She was, for 6 years, IFC country manager in Nigeria. She has master's, MBA. She's educated like crazy and tons of experience in the field of organizational health. Today, we're going to go into unconscious bias. But before that, I need to understand leaders and leadership. Traits, skills to make good ones. What do we need?
I think, first of all, that's a great question. And I would always love to lead with that because I think it's leadership first. And a lot of times when people say leadership or leaders, they think of, the head of the organization, the top. But leadership happens at every single level. And I fundamentally believe that. Leadership happens at every single level. And I think the core skill that a good leader has is the ability to listen. The ability to listen, right? The ability to understand what's happening around him or her, to be able to take a pulse of what's happening, and to be able to extract from all the team members, everybody around, and then just make a decision, a set of decisions based on that. That's a good leader from my perspective. A good leader is a good listener. Jack Welch, who was is the CEO of what's the company we see? Gosh, I'm forgetting right now. It'll come to me. Yeah, Jack Welch. He wrote a book called Winning, I think. And he talked about the fact that for him, he never wanted to be the smartest person in the room. He never wanted to be the smartest person in the room. And he was a famous CEO, right? Because he said, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then what are these people doing here?
How am I get out? They need to get out. I need to find some smarter people.
He wanted smarter people in the room.
Yeah.
A good leader recognizes that he or she has a lot to learn from a team that is diverse. That's another aspect of a good leader. Recognizing that his or her perspective is limited. It's narrow. It's informed by his or her own experience. But when they have the opportunity to hear different perspectives, especially perspectives that could be very different from their own perspective, that's where the power is. That's where good leadership comes from.
But lots of people want psychophancy. They want to click.
They're comfortable with that. And I understand why. Maybe they experienced that in their household. They experienced a very dictatorial environment in their household. So they feel comfortable when someone is banging on them and telling them what to do. And if somebody's asking their opinion, they feel very uncomfortable. I understand that.
But the other way is also true. With regards to the leader, for example, the leader wanting people who don't want to give opinions.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
The leader that doesn't want to give opinions.
No, that doesn't want to get opinion. Varied. Because you find organizations, for example, where you have, like I said, diversity. And with diversity comes a differing of opinions with regards to current situation, hopes and dreams for the future, and how to get there, right? So how do you, in a intelligent way, as a leader, encourage those various opinions? Because you said some people might have some issue expressing that, and then go into implementation.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I think there's only one way to do it. And that is for the leader to show some vulnerability.
Okay.
Now, when people hear that, they're like, no, my goodness, you can't be vulnerable in front of your team. They want you to be the victor. They want you to be the captain of the ship. They need to feel comfortable that you know where you're going. So that's very true. But what I mean when I say showing vulnerability is just to show that you're a human being, that you're fallible. You make mistakes as a leader. You're not always perfect, right?
Okay.
And then when you do that, and people call it vulnerable leadership, right? When you do that, it opens a door for somebody else to feel more comfortable.
Yes.
When they see you, not just as the head of the organization, they see you as a human being, right? Who is fallible. They're going to be more willing to raise their hand up and say something. But if you, as the leader, stand there and you are perfect, you have not made any mistakes.
Yeah.
You are always right.
Yeah.
Right. You don't know how to say sorry. You don't know how to apologize for the mistake you made.
Yes.
People will just be looking at you right? And they'll be wishing for your downfall the whole time, by the way.
So you've talked about some interesting points. You've talked about diversity. You've talked about understanding that you're limited and vulnerability. But 3 things you've said make a good leader or are really important for successful leadership are listening. Then you've said you need to understand, right, certain aspects. But then you need to also be decisive.
Yeah.
How important is decisiveness in owning a decision, is it making a decision and then following through? How important is that in leadership? Because sometimes you hear the listening, you get the listening, you get the understanding, but the person just doesn't make a decision. So you're always just in limbo, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because that's probably maybe one of the most challenging forms of that. That would be one of the most challenging leaders I could work for. Somebody who doesn't take decisions. I've worked for leaders who take decisions without talking to people, don't listen, you know. Those, I'm used to those.
Yeah.
You know, they just decide and tell you later.
Yeah.
I'm not used to those who just don't make decisions. They feel paralyzed maybe by decision making. That's probably going to be even tougher.
Yes.
Because then it creates within the team a bit of lethargy, definitely paralysis, right? So if the leader is paralyzed, the team is going to be paralyzed and everybody will be suspended. And what do we do? And ultimately, I think what happens in that kind of situation is that people's motivation just slowly kind of deteriorates. What you do in that situation is, I think that's a tricky one. I think what the leader, that leader probably needs some coaching. By the way, we all need coaching. All of us need coaching in something.
I got your number, girl. I got your number.
We all need coaching.
Yeah.
But that leader probably needs some coaching on how to take tough decisions.
Because we can't keep complaining about the same thing over and over and over again. We can't keep highlighting the same issues over and over and over again. Shouldn't we make some sort of decision, for good or for bad, and then just implement something?
I think most leaders who are admired and respected have that perspective, right? So they recognize that no decision is perfect.
Yeah.
But because I'm the leader, I have to own the decision and we're going to follow through and I'm going to take responsibility for what didn't happen the way it should. That is a good leader, right? That what you described to me is a good leader, understanding that there's no perfect decision. You make the decision and you own the decision all the way through. That to me is even if at the end of it, it's failure. Even if the leaders made the decision and it just wasn't the right thing to do, there's failure there. That leader can still be respected and admired by his or her team because of that decisiveness, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for people who inspire us not because they're perfect, but because they're decisive, because they have integrity. We haven't used that word, but integrity to me is critical. They are decisive, but they're decisive with integrity. When you put that combination of things together, even if the leader ends up going in a direction that's not the right direction for the company and it leads to some sort of setback, you're still going to find team members who still respect and admire that person.
Yes.
Because they held their head up through a difficult time.
I absolutely.
SpiceFM.